Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of our Defense Forces, Your Excellency, and social partners who are here, led by our Minister, Sister Jacqueline Mugo, led by our Minister and Sister Jacqueline Mugo. Foremost, Your Excellency, let me take this opportunity to humbly and with humility thank you for according us this rare opportunity to be here with you on behalf of the Kenyan workers. Your Excellency, we remember this is the second time for us to be here. We were here last year in this abnormal situation caused by this pandemic. Your Excellency, allow me to specifically recognize and appreciate you for your tireless efforts in protecting the lives of millions of Kenyans and at the same time ensuring that our economy remains sustainable during these turbulent times of COVID-19 pandemic. The economic havoc wreaked by the COVID pandemic remains unprecedented and has left millions of workers with far much less to celebrate. However, we should not despair, and COTU Kenya, as an umbrella workers body in the country, will work closely with your government to make sure that we steer our economy to very high heights in order to address the job losses that we have all witnessed as a result of this pandemic. Equally, Your Excellency, we would like to thank your government and specifically the following ministries, namely the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Interior, and the coordination of national government for providing an enabling environment for our organization and our affiliates to conduct successful elections under these abnormalities. Our special thanks go to Honorable Dr. Fred Matiang, Honorable Senator Mutai Kagwe, as well as Honorable Simon Chelugui, our minister who is here with us today. Your Excellency, briefly I want to talk about Labor Day. Most of our young men and women, they might not know why we are celebrating this important day. Labor Day, Your Excellency, has a unique history dating back to 1st May 1886, when trade unions in the United States of America decided to go on strike, demanding that workers should not be allowed to work for more than 8 hours a day. The strike was followed by a bomb blast in Chicago Haymarket Square, popularly known as Haymarket Affair, on 4th of May 1886, making May 1st to be a very important day. And this was followed by 2 years later, Your Excellency, in Paris, where there was an international meeting of both employers, workers, and governments to declare this day an International Workers' Day. And the purpose of this day, Your Excellency, is not to celebrate but to reflect on what happens at our various working places. These protests were instrumental in establishing 8 work day in the world, and since then 1st May has been celebrated throughout the world. Here in Kenya, Your Excellency, this history of Labor Day, and by large, the labor movement was equally not an easy one, having evolved through difficult situations created mainly by the then colonial government, which persistently defended employers in order to avoid seeing a strongly organized labor movement or employers organization at that particular time. However, with the pressure mounting in the British colonies, there was a change of attitude by our colonial masters, and this resulted in Kenya here to have an ordinance, trade unions ordinance in 1937, which allowed formation of trade unions, followed by the first trade union to be formed in 1940, led by no other person other than Mark and Singh, who equally was close to the African uprising leaders or leaders who led revolution and change in our country at that time. He associated very much with people like Chege Kibachi at that time, and people who are serious on seeing that Kenya was a free country. The situation grew from bad to worse, and in 1947, Your Excellency, we had a first strike in this country where 15,000 workers out of 20 workers went on strike in our Mombasa city. This strike paralyzed the whole of Mombasa and created an awareness of what a trade union was. The strike was led by no other person apart from other than Chege Kibachi, who had started as a labor officer and eventually he became a trade unionist. Your Excellency, being as brief as I want to be, with the emergence of more unions, a national trade union center was formed called Kenya Federation of Registered Trade Unions in 1952, led by the late Agre Minya. This was a precursor of the Kenya Federation of Labor, which was internationalized by no any other person other than the most African celebrated labor leader Joseph Thomas Mboya. In 1952, the declaration of a state of emergency by the colonial government caused a great setback in this area of registration of so many trade unions. Your Excellency, I must mention at this point that Africa, Asia, and Latin America attained their independence through the struggle of trade unions. In our history, Your Excellency, let me remember a few trade unionists who fought alongside our freedom fighters, including our founding father of this nation, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, who was part of the local government workers union, now the county government workers union. And those were Makan Singh, Chege Kibachi, Agre Minya, Tom Joseph Mboya, Fred Kubai, Vicky Washira, Ratibu Hussein, Pio Gama Pinto, Ocholo Gaye Makanyengo, Martin Shikuku, Clement Lubembe, and Dennis Akumu were instrumental in attaining of our independence, because they are the agitators of that particular time. And across Africa, Your Excellency, because I also speak for Africa as the president of the Organization of the African Trade Union Unity, I must remember people like John Tetig of Ghana, Ahmed Tilil of Tunisia, Paul Humphrey Luanda of Uganda, Rashid Kawa of Tanzania, Abdoulaye Diallo of Guinea-Conakry, Demba Diop of Mali, Jay Naidu, and Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, who is now the current president, all fought for our continental's total independence through the trade union movement. It was until in 1963, Your Excellency, when our founding father, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, declared this day in Kenya to be part of the global trade union International Labor Day. And even though, Your Excellency, after having had this day and several trade unions, we still have a lot of hurdles to make sure that workers are properly protected. We have employers who are still bent in maximizing profits without due regard to what workers do in their various places of work. Your Excellency, now let me briefly talk about COVID. I thank you, Your Excellency, and your government for having met a budget allocation during this time of COVID to the agricultural sector of the economy by supporting exporters both in the tea and floriculture industries, where you made sure that first and foremost there was a provision for cargo space of their exports, and you made sure under these trying moments our exporters can be able to access our ports for international markets. I want also a little bit to touch on what Sister Jacqueline Mugo has said, what your government did. I want to thank your Minister for Labor, And we call upon your government to continue supporting the social tripartite partners, namely the Federation of Kenya Employers, COTU, and government through the Ministry of Labor. Your Excellency, as it has been properly put, when we realized that the COVID pandemic was a big problem, these organizations developed and signed a tripartite agreement under the chairman of Cabinet Secretary Honorable Simon Cherugui on 30th April 2020. This memorandum of understanding, Your Excellency, provided for job security and assured working workers that those who might have been laid off during this pandemic period will not lose their employment when the situation returns to normal. This is a very big milestone in our country, and very, very few tripartite and social partners went and realized this. Your Excellency, I cannot finish my speech without mentioning some few things here. Like, secondly, Your Excellency, what has a problem that our country is facing, and a problem that you are fighting, Your Excellency. This is a vice known as corruption. It is through this vice that we have lost our forest cover, hence attracting massive deforestation, which has largely interfered with our environment. It is through corruption, Your Excellency, that we cannot obtain strategic medicine and quality medical cover in our public hospitals. Your Excellency, it is through corruption that those charged with responsibilities of restructuring our cities cannot achieve their desired infrastructure development changes and keep out the menace of informal transport, hawkers, and other things that do negate the principles of the international cities all over the world. I want to thank you for your own keen interest in making sure that the infrastructure in our city of Nairobi is being addressed, particularly what is happening on Mombasa Road. We do appreciate, Your Excellency, and the efforts you are trying to make that we have a link, a similar link between Nairobi and Mount Summit. It is through corruption that we lose so many people on our roads on daily basis because of allowing crowded and unroadworthy vehicles that have also denied Kenyans the opportunity to have an organized public transport system in our cities. Your Excellency, you realize that it is only Nairobi where workers suffer from left and right under the torture of the informal transport, and it is the only city now around that has no public organized transport. We thank you for what you have done to allow the railway system to start working in this city. It is through corruption that our students have continued to be sold stolen examinations and answers and receiving fake degrees from our institutions of high learning. It is through corruption that we cannot attract both foreign and domestic investments in this country with the obsession of demanding 10% or more on such investment, and this scares those who would be people who can create employment and supplement to our efforts of development to invest in this country. Your Excellency, on our procurement systems right away from the county governments to the national government, this area has been infiltrated by unscrupulous people known as entrepreneurs, and for us to develop in this world of digital and e-commerce trade, we appeal to Your Excellency not to get tired with what you are doing to fight this menace. Kenyan workers support you, and we will continue to support you. And on that I also say, and I will repeat, President, usitishwe. Now usitishwe. This equally reminds us that unless we support you to stop corruption, we will not take off as a nation economically and development-wise. Your Excellency, your efforts and what you are trying to do, both at the level of governance and at the level of managing our affairs, will continue to be supported by Kenyans of goodwill. Your Excellency, I would like to remind you that in 1968, the founding father of this nation, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, gave a grant of $5 million to the government of Malaysia, since Kenya was far ahead in terms of total GDP and its economic performance compared to the governments of Singapore, South Korea, now Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, South Korea, and other African countries that have since overtaken us. We hope and trust that in you we can realize the dreams of our forefathers. Your Excellency, before I sit down, as a champion of social justice, and as a champion of fairness, and as a champion of good governance, I must say something about BBI. Your Excellency, I cannot end speech without talking about Building Bridges initiative. And let me, on behalf of Kenyan workers, inform you that at our recently concluded 14th COTU Kenya Quinquennial Conference held at Tom Mboya Labour College on 9th of April 2021, one of the key resolutions made was that as Kenyan workers, we will stand with you. We will stand with the handshake team led by Your Excellency, together with your brother, the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga, in ensuring that one of the best legacy you can leave behind for Kenyans is a new constitution that addresses the pertinent areas of our governance, which normally causes hue and cry immediately after the general elections. And the recipient, those people who suffer after elections year in and year out, are workers, women, and children. Lastly, Your Excellency, before I go to the last comment, there is something I want your government to assist us. And I want also to ask the press, which is before us here, to be a little bit patriotic. Don't see when somebody issues a statement concerning a particular company, and you move fast to ask that company to advertise with your newspapers so that you can kill that story. And sometimes this story is geared towards protecting your rights. We have a young man, and we admired him when he took over, our own Kenyan, when he took over Safaricom. And he's a man who is very much experienced. He has come up with a very good program to spur that company to very high heights. But there are areas that he needs to be told these areas are not good. You cannot ask the in-serving officers to reapply when you are making changes. You can only shortlist them, you can evaluate them. If they are not fit to fit in the new system, you ask them kindly to retire and they go home. But when you ask the whole lot who has built over the years a farm like Safaricom that reapply afresh, you cause anxiety to the families, you cause stress which ends into depression. He must be advised, and he must be advised. Lastly, Your Excellency, we have even also the other areas, and Sister Jacqueline should help us. Some supermarkets are our own supermarkets, and you find a young lady or a young man standing from morning to evening. This causes a lot of worries. There must be 1 hour rest in every supermarket, and this is what cost the world to have this an International Labor Day. Lastly, Your Excellency, we can't ask for wages. We know the situation that we are in. We understand where we are. Me and Sister Jacqueline, we know what has befallen the world. We know the global economic performance. We are monitoring, we are saying. But what we are saying, Your Excellency, and also what I'm appealing to the Federation of Kenya Employers, is to make sure that some few areas of adjustments, particularly to those other companies that are doing well. And as I said, the President has supported both employers, manufacturers, there are people in the agricultural sector of our economy with hard cash to make sure that jobs are cushioned. But then we can still meet and make some minor adjustments here and there when it comes to terms of either minimum wage or the negotiated collective bargaining agreements, to make sure that those who are serving under these difficult situations, their pockets are not depleted, because people are really suffering. This is the appeal and I know you, President. There is a story that I have not told Kenyans. If you happen to have a problem and you move close to our president, even a problem of funeral, and you tell President, I have a relative or a neighbor who has lost a loved one, but these people cannot access to have even a coffin or something to make sure there is a home send-off of their beloved one. What our president does, first of all, is to pull out his handkerchief. He starts shedding. This is a real story. Or somebody cannot be able to pay school fees. You have been so sympathetic to Kenyans, and you have chance, you can still devise a method in your own wisdom to say, how can we be able to little bit compensate our officers, our doctors, our medical students, those people who are there, all those people who are serving, and those factories and companies that are serving under these difficulties. How do we also be mindful of their own welfare? As the late president used to tell us, that your hand to assist somebody who is a neighbor is a service to God. I want to leave it there, your president, and I want once again to thank you and to assure you that Kenyans will have to stand with you, and to assure you, maintain the handshake. This is what created the peace where we are today. Don't relent on BBI. It is us as workers who said we must revisit our constitution. And I want to appeal to members of parliament. They should not look at those areas. They will still again, time to time, be looked at in future. Let us have a new constitution. Let us have a peaceful country, Your Excellency. Let us have you around and enjoy the support, as I've told you, as workers. It is on a resolution that we will support your initiative to make sure Kenyans have a peaceful document in which governance is addressed. I thank you.